Good morning, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. In this video, we're going over our player prop bets. We're doing pretty well the last few weeks here or so. If you guys are new to the Fantasy Fellowship channel, every Saturday I'll upload a player prop video and put in my top 5 favorite props on the season. Right now, we're slightly above 500 here, 26 out of 45, 57%. Been doing pretty well the last few weeks. We've been 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5. Hoping to keep that trend alive. So what we'll do in this video is we're going to open up the DraftKings Sportsbook. We'll take a pop into each game and kind of just go over quickly our favorite player props, whether it's touchdowns or over-unders. So let's get this started with the Miami Dolphins and the Chicago Bears. The Dolphins picked to win by 4. 45.5 implied in this one. Money line sitting at minus 195. Touchdown scores in this one. I find it odd that there's nobody with minus odds here. Very interesting. You have Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill both tied at plus 100. We did bet Tyreek Hill to score last week, and he did not come through for us. So I'm kind of hoping that Tyreek Hill could be maybe someone that comes through for us this week. Raheem Mostert, I don't think he scored last week, but I think that against the Bears, they do allow a handful of running back points. Again, I'm using this tool on the fantasyfellowship.com, fantasy points allowed here. Just click on that and you can get access to all these charts. But the Bears, a pretty good defense, but they are green, giving up running back points here. So that is a nice spot for Raheem Mostert. I do think Jalen Waddle has been on fire, so I don't mind maybe a Jalen Waddle touchdown. It's very likely that one of Tyreek, one of Jalen Waddle will score in this one. Mike Gesicki's been kind of a sleeper. He's been scoring touchdowns and playing well the last month or so. So he's kind of a dark horse. We'll put him on the touchdown prop bet. And then for the Bears, like it's really tough. I mean, it's Khalil Herbert, Dave Montgomery, both guys at plus 150 here. I actually think Khalil Herbert's been playing better and looking like the better back. They've been starting to use him a little bit more than David Montgomery. So if you want to take a Bears one, I think it's Montgomery or Herbert. Perhaps Justin Fields gets a rushing touchdown in there, but we can't safely bet on a Bears passing touchdown. It's going to probably be one of the 3 rushing touchdowns there. But let's look at the passing props for this game. They have Tua at 1.5 touchdowns. People are taking the over. So people are taking the over on passing touchdowns. I mean, again, we slapped Gesicki, Waddle, Tyreek Hill. It's you probably want to go into one of those guys if he's going to throw 2. Justin Fields, people are slapping the over 0.5, so minus 245 there. They're saying he's going to throw a touchdown, which is interesting. The yards are both kind of low. Again, the Bears defense is pretty good against quarterbacks and wide receivers here. They're not allowing a lot of points at all. And in terms of the quarterback rankings, they are ranking 11th. So again, 32 means you are the worst. 11th means you're kind of strong. You're just outside the top 10 in defense there. And in terms of wide receiver points allowed, the Bears ranking 3rd. So this is a tough matchup for Tyreek, Waddle, and the boys. Interesting to see if Tua can hit his over-under. I don't feel strongly one way or the other. I like looking at the interceptions. People kind of thinking Fields is going to throw one at minus 120. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tua Tagovailoa throw an interception, so that one kind of intrigues me. But let's look at the rushing and the receiving props. They got Montgomery leading the way at 50.5 for the Bears, Fields at 49.5, and Herbert at 37.5. I just want to look and see what Justin Fields has been doing. It just seems like he's been running so much lately, and his 49.5 prop might interest us. 60, 82, 88, the last 3 games, 47, 52, 47. So it's a very strong possibility that he gets the job done with this 49.5. And you can see people are leaning into it at minus 130. So if you're feeling that one, I don't hate it. I don't trust the Dolphins to be able to run the ball consistently. And again, with new Jeff Wilson, who knows what Raheem Mostert's going to be up to. So I'm going to kind of fade the Dolphins running game in this one. In terms of receiving yards, though, they have Waddle at 64.5. People are kind of, liking that, minus 125. Tyreek at 86.5, only minus 115. I kind of like that one more. I think Tyreek has shown he's going to lead the league in receiving yards this year. So that's not a bad bet there. I like that one. Not interested in any of the Bears overs. Mooney at 41.5, whatever. He's really the only one that we can confidently take if we wanted to take a Bear receiver. They do think that Mooney's going to get about 3.5 receptions. They're taking the under on Cole Kmet 2.5, taking the under on Montgomery 2.5. And then there's Waddle. People are taking the under on him 5.5, but people are taking the over on Tyreek 6.5. So if Tyreek gets seven receptions, will he be over his 86.5? I think I'd rather take that 86.5. So that's kind of where we are with this game. Again, I'm trying to picking up the pace with these, so I'm going to move into the Chargers and the Falcons game. Not sure how many bets are going to be on this one because of all the injuries there. But let's look at it. Chargers, Falcons. Chargers picked to win by 3, 49.5 implied in this one. I think you got to assume Austin Eckler is going to find his way into the end zone in this one. He's been a touchdown machine before the bye. Minus 145. He's the only guy pretty much guaranteed to score in this one. So that's kind of low hanging fruit. I suppose you could take, if you wanted to take Austin Eckler and parlay him with one other heavy favorite to score, I think that's a fine play. And then look at here, Algier Huntley, no Cordero Patterson in this one yet. So that might change things. If Cordero plays, these guys are not going to be of interest to us. But the fact that the Chargers, man, they ranked second worst against the running backs here. They're allowing almost 30 fantasy points per game. They've allowed 10 touchdowns to the running back position. So maybe Algier Huntley. But again, without knowing if Cordell Patterson's going to play, it's kind of hard to bet on some of these guys. Who else could maybe catch a touchdown for the Chargers? You have DeAndre Carter here at plus 135. I like Josh Palmer at plus 135. That one might be kind of sneaky. Gerald Everett down here at plus 220. That one seems to me like kind of low-hanging fruit. Let's look and see how the Falcons are against the tight end. They do allow a lot of fantasy points. They've only allowed one touchdown on the year, but they do allow a lot of receptions and yards. So maybe Everett gets in. And again, they're dead last against the wide receivers. So that's why I'm kind of interested there. Kyle Pitts, London. It's going to be tough for me to bet touchdowns in this game. I think I might enjoy looking at let's look at the rushing receiving props. Eckler at 57.5. I'm open to that. Again, we don't know the state of the Falcons running back without Cordero Patterson's status yet. Maybe one of these quarterbacks hits. Like the people are taking Herbert over 8.5. I can see that one if he's scrambling more from the lack of receiving weapons. Eckler 51.5. What's his receptions? They don't even have that in there. So sorry, there's not a lot of info in here, guys. But people are taking the Everett over 4.5 receptions, and he's at 48.5. So I'm kind of interested in that one. Let's look at Everett's output throughout the season, and he's kind of benefited. He's benefited from. I mean, Keenan Allen's been out the whole year. Mike Williams is now out for a while, so he's benefited from a lot of absences here. He's gone over this number 1, 2, 3, 4 times this year out of 7 games. So the odds are kind of in his favor there. So I'm open to 48.5. London Pitts, I don't feel great about the Falcons passing game. If they get an Eckler prop in there, I'm open to him because Eckler's just been on fire. And I would assume Eckler is going to lead the team in targets. He's going to lead the team in receptions. And his numbers, 96, 47, 26, 49, 48, 55. So he's only gone over this number twice, which is not great. But we know that the Falcons give up a lot of points, to pass catchers. So maybe Eckler hits his. But otherwise, I'm not really feeling too great about props in this game here. Herbert, people are taking the over his 1.5 touchdowns. So I think that's fair. People taking the under 1.5 Mariota. People are kind of whatever on the yards. I don't really feel great either way. I suppose it's just tough because, like with no Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen, who's going to catch the ball? Can Herbert get up to 281? I'm not quite sure on that one. I do like Herbert maybe with his completions, 25.5 there. Again, he's going to pummel Eckler, Everett, and some of the short yardage targets. Interceptions here. They have neither quarterback throwing an interception tomorrow, Herbert or Mariota. I could see Herbert throwing a touchdown just because he's probably going to be a volume game and he's playing with some inexperienced quarterbacks. So I'm kind of interested in the Herbert interception. But otherwise, again, this one, we don't know what's going on with Cordero Patterson. So let's move on to a different game here. Let's hop into the Panthers and the Bengals. Bengals favored to win by 7.5 at home, 42.5 implied. You look at the touchdown scorers here. You have Mixon at minus 130. Let's actually look and see. I should probably look at this before we start every game. So the Panthers, kind of an average defense in terms of 80, so this chart shows total points allowed per game. So the Panthers allowing 85 total points per game. It looks like their best position is they allow receiver points. They are kind of whatever middle of the road against tight end, quarterback, and running back. So I think with that in mind, I mean, Higgins and Tyler Boyd, those guys, I mean, these are the three guys that are going to score. If there's going to be any Bengals touchdowns, like these are the three guys. I suppose Hayden Hurst could maybe be that guy for you if you want to feel a little risky. I feel confident in T. Higgins this week. I always feel confident in T. Higgins, but I would ride with only these three guys for touchdown scorers. And then on the Bengals side here, they're not allowing a lot of fantasy points like at all. They rank third best, almost 72 fantasy points per game. They're red pretty much everywhere, which is surprising to say the least. They've only allowed 7 passing touchdowns all year. In terms of rushing touchdowns, they've only allowed 4, but they've allowed 2 receiving. And we did see Nick Chubb and the Browns kind of run all over these guys last week. So maybe that carries over a little bit. I will say if the Panthers are going to score, it's Deonta Foreman, and we know Chuba Hubbard's been ruled out. So I think that one feels pretty good. I don't think I can recommend betting on DJ Moore or any of your other Panthers to get in the end zone. People are slamming the over. Joe Burrow, 1.5 touchdowns here at minus 200. People are taking the over on PJ Walker at a half a touchdown. So that's interesting. The passing yards for Burrow, 256. PJ Walker, 191. Again, some lower numbers coming here for Burrow since he doesn't have Jamar Chase. But if you tell me Higgins gets, 90 to 100 and Tyler Boyd gets 70 to 80, that's almost like 180. He still needs about 80 yards to go. So can he get that from Hayden Hurst, from Joe Mixon, and some of his other weapons? I think that 256 intrigues me a little bit there. In terms of interceptions, they got PJ Walker at minus 1.5. People are taking the under 1.5, so I'm assuming he's going to throw one tomorrow for sure. Joe Burrow, PJ Walker passing attempts, completions, not really interested in some of these numbers. People are slamming the over on pass completions, though, for Burrow. Let's look at that. What's Burrow's kind of average at for completions per game? And especially if we look at last week's game, it was so bad last week. 25 last week, 34, 28, 24. His last 4 games, he's been slightly around that. So 23.5, man, that feels good. In 2 losses, he's hit that in 2 losses, and in his wins, he hits that. So he's only had 2 games where he's been under this number. So I think 23.5 pass completions for Joe Burrow makes a lot of sense. And then other than that, not sure I love everything else here. Let's look at the rushing receiving props. So Deonta Foreman, people are taking the over here on 69.5. I think that's fair. Joe Mixon at 68.5. What did Mixon get to last week? Again, it was an awful, awful game script against the Browns. Only 27 yards. He really has he's only gone over that number, 69.5, twice all year. So 78 and 82 in weeks 1 and 5. I don't know if I love that number. Maybe if you like the under, or for 68.5, my bad. If you like the under, maybe that intrigues us. Joe Burrow, 13.5 rushing yards. What does that do for us? Has he been scrambling? He's been over that 4 times this year. So you've got, a 50% chance of that hitting? Reception yards. Maybe Deonta Foreman gets involved in the passing game in this one. Let's look at that. I'm going to look at his numbers real quick. I don't think he didn't catch a pass last week, but he went 2 for 27 the week before. So if he catches a pass, it's got a good opportunity to get that 8.5. DJ Moore, 62.5. I don't feel great about that. Let's look at the big guys. T. Higgins, 75.5 is intriguing. And Tyler Boyd, kind of low-hanging fruit for Tyler Boyd. He's at 59.5. Now, when I'm looking at reception yards, I love to look at the receptions. So people are they're smashing the over on T. Higgins, 5.5. And they're taking the under on Tyler Boyd, 5.5. So they're saying Boyd maybe 5 catches for 60 yards. And they're saying Higgins maybe 6 catches for 75 yards. So I think I'm going to lean with Higgins in this one. I think he's the better matchup. Expect him to get loose. And then nothing else really sticks out. People are slightly leaning over on Hayden Hurst, 37.5. People are slamming the under on Ian Thomas here, 1.5 receptions. Terrace Marshall at 3.5. People smashing the under there. Excuse me. And then Joe Mixon, man. Mixon's been a busy pass catcher, and with the absence of Jamar Chase, last week we saw Mixon get heavily involved as a pass catcher. 7 receptions last week, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 3. Conveniently, conveniently set at 3.5. I think I'm kind of interested in the over in this one, as the Panthers do have good pass rushers. So maybe they try to leverage the Joe Mixon screen game in this one to kind of negate that. So that's kind of where I stand on this one. Fun game. I think the Bengals, man, they're desperate for a win. They've kind of looked fuzzy the last couple games here. But let's move on to the Green Bay Packers at the Detroit Lions. Packers favored to win by 3.5, 49.5 total implied in this one. They're saying there's going to be a lot of touchdowns in this one. I think you got to take the Jamal Williams touchdown. He's going against his former team, and we know that DeAndre Swift is not 100%. So if there's going to be a Lion touchdown, I feel very positive about Jamal Williams. Aaron Jones is going to score. So like some of the things I was talking about, like, so for fun, say you take the Eckler touchdown and you pair that with, so say you just put you put 10 on that. Can we put 10 on? Can we put 10 on the? Where's the Eckler touchdown? Can you do that? Yeah, it's not showing up. But say you parlayed the Aaron Jones and the Austin Eckler touchdown. Again, those are two highly, probability guys that are going to score touchdowns tomorrow. I think I'm interested in that two-man parlay. AJ Dillon likely to score. I'm open to him getting in the end zone. And if Rodgers, let's actually look at this, because Rodgers, they have him at 1.5 touchdowns, and they're smashing the over there. So if Rodgers hits his 2 passing touchdowns, you got to think Lazard, Dobbs, Tunyon, Aaron Jones is a part of that as well. They have Lazard at plus 120. I'm open there. Maybe Romeo Dobbs plus 145. But I do think the Packers probably getting 3, if not 4 touchdowns in this game. So you got to think 2 passing, Lazard, Aaron Jones, Dobbs would be the top favorites there. And then maybe some rushing touchdowns. On the Lions side, I like Jamal Williams, maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown. The thing is, the Packers, pretty stingy. I know they get a lot of crap on defense, but you look at their numbers here. They don't give up QB points. They don't give up tight end points, and they are pretty good against wide receivers. So they allow running back points. So it's kind of tough, man. Again, they rank 5th toughest against the quarterback. They rank middle of the road. Again, running back is where you can score on them. And then allowed to the wide receiver points, they rank 7th best. So 6 touchdowns to the wide receiver position, that might be the spot here. So whether that is Amon-Ra St. Brown or Khalif Raymond, I suppose, but I'm just really not feeling like I love those numbers. Again, Rodgers is going to throw 2 touchdowns plus. The numbers here are kind of too high for me. People are taking the over on Rodgers, 261.5. People are hammering the under interceptions for Aaron Rodgers. Kind of taking the Jared Goff over there. So maybe a Jared Goff interceptions in the works tomorrow. Again, I don't feel great about Jared Goff in the passing game tomorrow. Aaron Jones, this is probably a lock for me. 65.5 yards for Aaron Jones. That feels way too low. So Aaron Jones, 65.5, sign me up for that. Even AJ Dillon. I mean, you see what's going on here. People are slamming the Packers running backs to hit their numbers. And then people are taking the under on DeAndre Swift. Notice how Jamal Williams is not in here. So tomorrow's going to be a Jamal Williams game. Aaron Jones over on his receiving yards, 28.5. AJ Dillon kind of under on his yards. People are hammering Amon-Ra at 71.5. And keep in mind, man, the Packers defense has not allowed. I'm going to go to FF Today. So FF Today has a nice tool. If you just click on their stats tool and go down, fantasy points allowed in the wide receiver position. And then I want to look for Green Bay. So the Packers versus wide receiver. And then we can see how many receivers have gone over this number. So they've had Justin Jefferson, of course. Looks like Russell Gage hit 87. Looks like Darius Slayton hit 79. Looks like Terry McLaurin with 73. And Stephon Diggs with 108. So if anyone's going to hit their over for the Lions, it's going to be Amon-Ra. So 71.5 seems interesting. What did the Lions give up for points? So look at that. I mean, the Lions are giving up a lot of fantasy points here. They're green against everything. They're specifically green against quarterback, and pretty much they're going to be generous against receivers, running backs, and tight ends. So maybe Robert Tunyon hits his 30.5. In terms of receptions, they have people taking the under on Tunyon 3.5. People taking the under on Dobbs 4.5. People hitting the over on Amon-Ra. the over on Aaron Jones, and looks like kind of the under on AJ Dillon. So I don't feel great about it. I think I like the touchdowns and the running back yards in this game, so we'll go with that. But let's go ahead and look at the Raiders and the Jaguars. And then I'm gonna kind of pick up the pace here. I love touchdown bets. There's going to be touchdowns in this game. So ETN, definitely. Josh Jacobs, probably a guy. Devontae Adams, expect him to get back into the good graces. So look at those three guys for sure. And then after that, I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence can throw for 2 touchdowns in this one. Where is it? The Raiders, man, they're the worst team against the quarterback. They've allowed 15 passing touchdowns in 7 games. So for Lawrence to throw 2 passing touchdowns, people are taking the under. I kind of like the over 1.5 at plus 100. So with that being said, I mean, ETN can catch one. Ingram, Kirk, of course, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones are always in play. So I'm thinking that's where the market is kind of wrong on this game. So I like some of that action. Let me see what else they got here. Again, the Raiders are just awful against the quarterback. So Lawrence at 1.5. People taking the under on Derek Carr, which is interesting. Interceptions. They have both quarterbacks throwing an interception. So if you guys want to play one of those, that's fine too. Completions are both at 22.5. Again, I think I'm going to stick with the touchdowns in this one. Rushing and receiving, they have ETN at 76.5. The Raiders pretty generous to the running back position, I believe. Yep, they've allowed a handful of fantasy points per game, about 27. So ETN, man, if he gets 90% of the workload, he's putting up another 25 fantasy points this week. So ETN 76.5 seems interesting. Trevor Lawrence, man, has he been running the football well? Spell Lawrence correctly. Trevor Lawrence. So he had 15 last week, 3 against the Giants, 23, 29. That's a trend. I think he's probably running the ball between 4 to 6 times tomorrow. So maybe he hits his 12.5. Christian Kirk, 52.5. That seems kind of low. People are hammering. Actually, they're not hammering either side of Christian Kirk. But at 4.5 receptions, I think if he gets to 5, he's going to hit that. Devontae Adams, people are taking the under 6.5. People taking the over on Ingram, like hammering the over on Ingram. So what's his yards at? Evan Ingram, 41.5. I think that one's a sneaky one. If he's going to get 4 catches, I like him to be over 10.5, about 10.5 yards per reception. Let's actually look at Ingram real quick. So yeah, he's averaging 10.3 yards per catch. So Ingram is in play. People slamming the under on Jacobs receptions, the under on Hollins, the under on Marvin Jones, the under on ETN, and the under. So a lot of unders in this one. So interesting. But that's probably where I'll stay with this one. Let's move on to another game here. The Colts and the Patriots. We'll be quick on this one. I'm not super excited about this game. Patriots picked to win by 5.5. You got to take the Ramondre Stevenson touchdown in this one. No Damian Harris tomorrow, so I think we got to lock this. Like, if you're watching this, lock this in before this changes. Like Ramondre is going to score tomorrow. I feel good about that. If any other Patriot scores, Jacoby Myers has been the guy, but I think I'm just going to stick with Ramondre in this game. And if there's going to be a Colts touchdown, it's probably Deion Jackson. I mean, he's a solid backup running back here. I think if you're going to bet on any Colt guy, that's probably the one that I'd be open to dabbling with. The rushing receiving total props here. Let's look at that. Ramondre Stevenson, again, 67.5. These numbers are too low for Ramondre. Damian Harris is not going to play. He's been sick all week. They have Ramondre kind of high on his reception yards. What's his receiving? Yeah, they don't have receptions in there. So I think for the Patriots game, it's only Ramondre Stevenson. He's the only player I want to bet on. I don't trust the Colts offense. Stick with Ramondre, and let's move on to the Bills, the Jets. I don't trust any of the Jets tomorrow. Sure, Diggs get a touchdown. Josh Allen's due for some rushing touchdowns. Gabe Davis is due for a big game as well. So these are the top 3 guys there. Dawson Knox has been catching touchdowns as well. So again, 46th implied in this one. Assume the Bills are going to score 3, if not 4 touchdowns in this game. That's probably the only thing I'm comfortable betting on. Do not bet on a Jets touchdown. It's just too difficult to predict. I will say, in terms of receptions, I don't have anything in here, but people are taking the under on Conklin, 3.5, the under on Diggs, 6.5, which seems kind of low, and the under on Garrett Wilson. So again, not really a lot of confidence in this game. I don't feel great about any of the reception totals right now. But Conklin's kind of low at 28.5 if he gets heavy usage. But I think for this game, I mean, they got Josh Allen at 2.5 passing touchdowns. I I don't know why Zach Wilson would be at I guess he's at point 0.5 and people are slamming the over there. So that's a weird number. Josh Allen again, people are taking the under on him 2.5. Maybe he gets to 3 tomorrow. Again, they don't really run for a lot of touchdowns, but maybe he gets the third touchdown tomorrow. Interceptions, people are saying there's going to be a Zach Wilson interception tomorrow, so we'll go with that. But for me, again, if you watch my show, I like going into the touchdowns. And again, Bills are heavy away favorites. I would go with the touchdowns in that one. Let's look at the Vikings and the Commanders. J.D. McKissick ruled out in this one, so I like Gibson, Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson, they arrested the guy who ended up carjacking and popping his knee. So maybe Brian Robinson scores tomorrow. I think Robinson and Gibson are what that's where I want to bet for the Commanders. In terms of the Vikings, like Justin Jefferson hasn't scored a receiving touchdown since week 1. So I think the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I think he is due. You could always take a Dalvin Cook touchdown. Let's look and see here. The Commanders they're allowing quarterback and wide receiver points. So they're stout against tight end and kind of good against running back. So I think Jefferson's the guy you want to lean into. And then the running game for the Commanders. Let's look at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings give up points, man. They're actually giving up points to the like everywhere but the running back. So interesting. How many running back touchdowns? Now they have given up. Where's the Minnesota Vikings? They have given up 5 touchdowns on the ground in 7 games. So that does lean towards Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. And then the receiving touchdowns, they're pretty bad against receiver. They've given up 5 receiving touchdowns. So with that in mind, you got Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. Those are the only 2 I think I would bet on. Let's look at the reception totals or the receiving rushing props here. Robinson at 44.5. They don't have a Gibson line in there. Dalvin Cook, I don't feel great about any of these. I like the Heineke over if you like 13.5 and that resonates with you. Let's look at the receptions first. Samuel at 4.5. McLaurin, people are slamming the over 4.5. People taking the over on Osborne 2.5. The under on Justin Jefferson, I think that one might be over. I think Justin Jefferson's going to have a game off the bye week here. To me, I mean, this game is about Justin Jefferson reasserting himself in the end zone and getting back off the bye week. So I think Jefferson's the one guy I feel confident about here. They have Gibson at 21.5 receiving yards. They don't have a combined total for him. I'm looking at just Dalvin Cook, but I like Gibson in this one. Again, no J.D. McKissick, so expect Gibson to be heavily utilized. Maybe people are taking the over on his receptions or his receiving totals, so maybe that's where to play this one. But let's move on to the Seahawks and the Cardinals. Looking at this one real quick, the favorites to score tomorrow, of course, Kenneth Walker. Looks like James Conner's got a chance to play. So if he plays, I think he does have a good chance to score. Otherwise, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins. I'm into Hopkins. Metcalf and Lockett, it's tough because I don't know which one of those guys is going to score every week. So to me, if you're going to bet on the Seahawks, bet Kenneth Walker. If you're going to bet on the Cardinals, it's James Conner and DeAndre Hopkins. I think those are the only 2 guys that I'm comfortable betting touchdown slips on. Let's look at the rushing and the receiving numbers. They have Kenneth Walker, 73.5. They don't have a Cardinal running back in here yet. Hopkins at 84. What are the reception totals here? They have Hopkins going over 6.5. So if he gets 7 catches for 84, that seems to be about right. The under on Metcalf, the over on Noah Fant, interesting. Noah Fant at 27.5, and they're saying he's going to get 3 receptions. So that one might be the one that sticks out here. The over on Rondale Moore, 4.5. The under on Tyler Lockett, 5.5. Disley under and Zach Ertz under. So to me, again, this is Hopkins. I think both DK and Lockett can have success. I like Lockett, I think, more at 65.5 than DK Metcalf. He's been a little bit more consistent, I think, this year. And DK gets the touchdowns, Lockett gets the yards. So I think that's where I will lay with this game. But fun game for the NFC West shaping up there. Let's move on to the Rams and the Buccaneers. Ugly offenses in this one. Leonard Fournette and Cooper Kupp are both favored to score. I saw a stat where Mike Evans, he has not scored a touchdown in 4 games. If he doesn't score a touchdown in this game, it will be the first time since like 2017 where he's gone 5 games without a touchdown. So I'm thinking Mike Evans, history is on our side here where Mike Evans should score a touchdown in this one. What's Tom Brady's numbers at? They have both quarterbacks at 1.5 for passing touchdowns. They're saying Tom Brady's going to get it. So again, I think that leans towards Mike Evans. I don't feel comfortable betting on the Rams. Again, if there's going to be a touchdown on the Rams, it's probably Cooper Kupp, and that's fair. Let's look at the receptions total here. They're saying the over on Allen Robinson 3.5, the under on Kate Otten 3.5, the over on Godwin 6.5. People are smashing the over on Cooper Kupp 7.5. Julio Jones, whatever, Leonard Fournette 3.5, and then people are taking the under on Mike Evans 5.5. Godwin's kind of low hanging fruit. People are taking the over on him on 6.5. So Godwin at 66.5 receiving yards makes sense. Again, I like Evans's touchdown number more than I like his extra props here. So I think that's where I'll lay. I think Godwin with the receptions and the yards, Mike Evans with the touchdown, Cooper Kupp at 83.5 with the knee. I'm nervous about that. And then I don't expect either team to run the ball in this one, so you guys can just ignore that. Let's move on and finish up with the Sunday night football game, the Chiefs and the Titans. Kelsey's always going to be a bet to score, and Henry. I think you can take both those guys and probably have a good time. I would expect Mahomes to, even the ball out. So it's tough to bet on the Chiefs touchdowns. I think you're probably better off betting on some of the receiving and rushing props here. So Kelsey, let's look at his numbers. And yeah, they don't have everything in here, but Kelsey 6.5 receptions, people taking the under. Kelsey 73.5 yards. I'm open to that one for sure. People are taking the over on Juju receptions, the under on Marquez Valdez-Scantling receptions, and the under on McKinnon. Nothing else really sticks out here, so it's kind of too early. Again, it's Saturday morning. We'll probably get some more action in this tomorrow, but that's going to do it. Again, I'm just trying to make these videos quicker for you guys, and then again, use the timestamps if you guys want to hop around to each game. I know I don't cover it, super thoroughly, but I try to get as many options out there. So I'm going to spend some time getting my favorite bets put in there. Check out the top 5 and the bets to consider list. But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for your time. Enjoy your Saturday and good luck on Sunday. Peace.